Hey guys, what's up? It's Brendan and David here at the LAN party.
What's up?
This is definitely not the same day that we recorded the Rogue Legacy Let's Play.
No.
We just happen to be wearing the same clothes.
Man, I like this shirt.
I know.
It's a good shirt.
As often as I can be Cobra Commander, I will be. So, yeah, that's going to happen. But we are playing a different game now in a slightly similar kind of vein, I would say.
It's exactly the same.
Yeah, it's pretty much the exact same thing. And that game that we're playing is actually Bloodborne.
Bloodborne.
Yeah.
So this is a very nice fantasy game about a guy with some blood.
Yeah, and he was born with it.
He was born with
it's
it.
It's in the vein of such exploration, point-and-click adventures like Gone Home. No, it's not like that at all. From Software released this. This is their third new IP in the Souls series, but it's like their fourth game because you had Demon Souls, Dark Souls 2, and then Bloodborne. Bloodborne takes place in a new world and is a PS4 exclusive that they released.
It's also quote-unquote easier.
Yeah, that's what the internet says. Not
they
true.
lie to you.
As somebody who platted Dark Souls and
I don't know how
gave up in frustration for Demon Souls, I can tell you that Bloodborne, in my opinion, is harder, and we're going to get into why. But the first thing I'd like to preface it with is this game is fucking gorgeous.
Yeah.
This is one of the most beautiful games on PlayStation 4 right now. I think graphics-wise and from its design, this kind of dedication to this steampunky, Lovecraftian horror world is just immense.
It's amazing.
And the design behind, all sorts of the trick weapons and the character models and everything, it takes that kind of strange, semi-familiar dream state kind of world of Dark Souls and just cranks it to 11.
Yeah. I mean, I really like Bloodborne because even though it's dark in some parts, when you played Dark Souls, it was black screen, monsters popping out of everything. Here is the detail is a crystal. It's just a gorgeous looking game.
Yeah. I think in terms of the way that they set it up too, this is my favorite in the series in terms of its design. It forces you into a playstyle where, unlike Dark Souls and Demon Souls, for those who are veterans of it, it doesn't have the same slow, methodical kind of pacing. The way that you get through Dark Souls is by being very, very careful and choosing the opportune moment. And in this game, a lot of the time, they don't give you the option to do that. It forces a much more fast-paced combat.
It's very reactionary from what I've seen you play.
Yeah. One of the new mechanics they built into it is the rally system. So when you take damage, you have a portion of your health bar that's left kind of glowing orange, and you have a certain amount of time, a very brief window, to strike enemies again. And if you do, then you get the health back that you might have lost from it. Now, I should point out, I am fairly far into the game. If you guys have been playing it and you don't want things to be spoiled, if you are prior to visiting Bregenworth in the game, you should probably stop watching now because it does dramatically change the layout of the game world. For those of you who don't care or want to see it, keep watching. I'm back in what is the central hub area for Yharnam, where you start the game, but things have become modified as there's this kind of nightmare stuff going on.
I really like the cathedrals everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
The setting of this place is ridiculously awesome. Not to mention all the detail that went through creating it. I can't even, boggle.
Well, and it's
mind-boggling.
It's laid out brilliantly in this kind of modern day, we overuse this term grotesquely, but Metroidvania kind of sense, where the exploration is very organic, but it's obviously contrived. They spent a lot of time designing all these very large avenues you get to wander down and all the intersecting alleyways and things. And they knew where you'd be able to access based off of your skills or what the unlocks were, and it's very planned, but it never feels contrived. The sense of exploration is constantly there. And there's a reward for wandering down all those dark alleys with all the threatening monsters hiding.
Like this guy with the axe. So I see the weapon you're using there is a sword and hammer?
Yeah, so for Dark Souls fans, you should probably know trick weapons are the name of the game here. So your character plays as a hunter, and that gives you a couple of different ways to fight, but the main weapons that you use are called trick weapons, and the reason why is because they all have kind of different forms to them. The Kurt hammer I'm using, for example, is the combination of this massive maul and a longsword. And you have a button you can tap, you plug the sword into it, and now you're using the heavy weapon. Tap another button, you're back to using the very fast longsword.
Which on the least just looks freaking cool as hell.
Yeah, and you can switch on the fly by moving the hits into your combinations. So you can go between them. And it sets up some really interesting gameplay. The way I built my character is actually a heavy stam health build, and he's just very strong. So I'm using brute force and a lot of melee weapons that are very heavy and slow and deliberate. But that said, there's a lot of different ways you can play. You can build arcane, you can build into using the handguns, which have sort of usurped shields in the game. Blocking does not work the way it did in Dark Souls. It's not nearly as effective. So you can kind of interrupt guys by using guns with well-timed attacks. And you actually have, similar to Dark Souls in the backstab, where you can walk up behind a target and take it out instantly. They gave you the same kind of thing where if you perfectly time an interception on an incoming attack, you get a chance to perform something called a visceral attack, where you basically like reach inside their chest and Kali Ma them, you know.
Old school Indiana Jones.
Yeah, and when you tear it out, you know, you get an increased number of souls. It makes it really easy to rally, and it takes enemies out instantaneously, which is obviously super
very helpful. Now, I mean, really, I've seen you play Dark Souls, and I've seen you play this, and this looks more like, in terms of your concentration based, this takes more concentration.
Oh yeah, definitely. Dark Souls, I got to a point where I could play that pretty passively. It involved a degree of memorization. You know, you knew where the enemies were, you knew how to kill each one, but it was just so much slower and just had so much less variety in what could go wrong. Bloodborne forces you constantly to be like reacting to the kinds of changes your opponents force on you, and the fact that there's so much variety in even what a single enemy might do or how they act in groups. It keeps you on your toes more. And the fact that you can't block, that your armor is super limited. None of the armor that you find in the game, no matter where you are in the progression, is really any more effective. There are some that have certain elemental resistances built into them to make them like slightly better for fights, but none of it is increasing damage reduction. Which is like Alien. In the Souls series, you're just constantly grinding towards having enough stats to equip something that will mitigate the damage.
Yeah.
This one, you have no hope.
No hope. Give it up now.
But I would say, gameplay-wise, the big change is that you're kind of liberated. Dark Souls, there were a lot of times where I get killed because I just got overly ambitious. In this, you actually kind of get rewarded for biting off more than you can chew occasionally. You go too far, you're obviously going to die, but you can really recover from a mistake by pushing down the gas pedal harder sometimes.
Killing more enemies.
And rallying so you can get back lost health.
Well, I mean, that's always the bad thing. If an enemy hits you and then they die, you can't rally back any of that health.
Right.
But I mean, I see you have max blood vials. I hear that's a problem in the game.
No. Yeah. Well, this is the weird thing with the healing. So, like the Estus flask in Dark Souls was pretty limited use. You had to go back to a bonfire in order to get it back. Blood vials in this, you usually actually have way more than you need.
I've seen you pick up like 6 or 7
Unless,
right now.
I guess if you're like a complete idiot, like Dan Stapleton at IGN, for instance, you have trouble finding items in these games, but if you actually take some time to play it, bullets and blood vials you pretty much are never running out of. The problem is, a lot of the time they're not going to help you because you take the damage so quickly and you have such little recourse.
You don't have any chance to go healing back.
Yeah, and actually here, I'll just waste one so you can see. That's the animation, and you can't interrupt that. So, I mean, it looks brief, but in one of these games, that is an eternity. I can tell you, not moving while that's going off and trying to survive that amount of time can just be...
It's kind of a horrible, horrible plan.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing I like about this game specifically is the AI.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen you fight enemies that actually, like, fight back.
Yep.
If you can only attack them from the back, they back against a wall. It's like... it's intense. Let's put it that way.
Well, and I think much more so than in Dark Souls, the patterns that are programmed into them adapt much more to what's happening to them. Like right now, I'm fighting guys who I grossly outlevel and just tearing them apart without even trying. But the more active enemies you find, they'll really pay attention to the kind of weapon you're using and where you make the attacks, and they'll build right into your mistakes. So you have to know. And you have to work very hard to keep that advantage, because you will lose it in the briefest of moments. And you won't get it.
No, there's no getting it. I mean, I don't know. I'm not good at these games. Just plain and simple.
I don't think anybody is. I would not claim to be great at these games, but they're not your cup of tea.
Usually not. I played Dark Souls a bit until I burned out. It was
Some friendly characters. Right?
it's just brutal. I remember one of the first times I watched you play, one of those things jumped through a cathedral door. Completely unexpected.
These two, actually, in particular, in this bridge section, were horrifying for me for a very long time.
Until you can figure out how to kill them.
Yeah, I get patterns, and in this case, I just totally outclass them, so there's just no way they're going to take me out.
I mean, Dark Souls itself, when I was playing it, it's just brutal. It does not reward you for anything.
No, and I think it involves a kind of serious and aggressive rewiring of your own brain to be like, okay, this game is not behaving the way that I'm used to.
Yeah.
It's not going to baby me. It's not going to give me hints or help. No menu's going to pop up. There's no mini-map. None of those things are going to go.
And that's actually kind of the draw of the franchise.
Yeah, I think for me, that's like the number one thing I like about it is that the game is just very sophisticated and very uncompromising. And I like that it has these things in it that are kind of lost to us, like the water cooler conversation you have with somebody else who's playing it, and you're like, oh, did you see this thing that's hidden in this alleyway, this little weird thing happening while I was down there? No, I didn't hear about that. Like, even if you're going to wikis online and stuff, it's hard to find that interaction in a game because there's usually like a blinking objective thing telling you where to go, or
Assassin's Creed. You just set a waypoint and you go.
oh my god, or like fast travel or something like that. Like they even removed the fast travel that you had in Dark Souls, where you could go between bonfires. And this one, they have the lamps, which kind of substitute the bonfires, but you have to go back to the central world before you can go to where they are.
Yeah, so you can't go directly from where you were to wherever the hell you're going now.
Yeah. And so that limits you because you have to go through the loading screens, which is probably the one technical flaw of the game. It has pretty severe loading times. These ones you're seeing between the different lamps, these are actually the shorter loads in the game.
Where are the longer ones?
When you die. And they can be, right now, anywhere from like 35 to 45 seconds. Jeez. So it's like an added punishment for dying is that you're also going to be staring at Bloodborne for like the better part of a minute, remembering how you lost.
Yeah, I mean, these are pretty long.
Yeah, they're severe. You can make a sandwich during some of them, to be completely honest. But they are saying they're trying to patch it, and for me, the rest of it's been just such an overwhelmingly positive experience playing the game. Like, I don't even care.
That this doesn't even factor in.
I wanted to come down here, though, to show you this. So, one of the things that I think this has on Dark Souls, straight out of the gate, that I noticed immediately is the dedication they have to its design. And I wanted to illustrate that, so I'm going to head to a specific place. Actually. Yeah. In Dark Souls, I always felt like some of them, the enemies were disjointed. You were in this like fantasy world, but not a lot of the things like made sense next to each other. In this game, everything supports this Lovecraftian horror world that they built. So like this dude here with his snake heads. He's a horrifying monster.
Very terrifying.
And he brings some variety to the game because he exists in a game with those werewolves and all those other things. You can see here this gorgeous bridge over this like forest environment.
Yeah, I mean, just look at the detail.
Yeah. But
every time I watch this game, it's like, fuck.
Yeah.
Jesus.
And like the little lamps and the little extra everything that's going on. A lot of the things sway in the breeze too, like the trees and things like that if you're in a windy area or the grass, so you're always like worried about what's moving. But it features some real variety in the enemies, but the variety is tempered by the design. So what I wanted to show you is if I can find one. We're gonna explore into the forbidden world. There we go. These guys.
What is that?
This is just a big pile of snakes.
Huh. That seems friendly.
Oh, hey, and there's one behind me. Classic insoles. See a little poison bar building up. We don't want that to get too high. Let's St. Patrick first.
So what you're saying is the enemies kind of compound on them, or build on themselves.
Yeah, and they build on the mythology the game has going more so than like Dark Souls, where like you would go from like zombies to like a crystalline giant with no real explanation. They're like, oh, you're in the land of the gods. There's weird stuff here. But like this one, in this particular zone, you followed out the trail of a bunch of these villagers out towards the College of Bregenworth, which you get nothing to really explain what that is, except that it's fucked up. And the more you get out here, the more you figure out that like these people are like somehow worshipping some kind of dark power that's helping them transform. And these particular guys out on this road have somehow emulated like snakes. There's like these big weird alien pod things out here that are referential of other enemies in the game. But like everything out here is snake themed, but also tied to the beast creatures as well. You know, grab that mouse for the thing and just waggle it.
Yeah.
But I like that. I like that symmetry in design, that they thought that out and they were like, we're not just going to stick anything in the game, we're going to stick things in the game that, you know, actually go along with it and fit into the design that we're trying to build.
There it goes.
But
no, I really like, when you talk about the enemies, I've seen you do a couple of the bosses now. It all seems to, it's all really tight knit together. I mean, what's the basics of Bloodborne? All these people just have weird infective disease.
Well, that's the weird thing. Okay, so it's a From game, so they're not giving you any like exposition. You're never meeting a character or finding a book that's explaining anything to you. So what I know, I'll preface internet with, I know based off my own personal experience. There's probably lore out there that explains this better, but this is my understanding.
Okay.
You're an outsider. You're not from the city of Yharnam where this game takes place. And you've arrived here because Yharnam is famed for having a panacea. It has some kind of medicine that can cure any illness. But it apparently has come at a price to these people in that they're all crazy mutants who transform into these horrible monsters.
So it may cure your disease, but it also might give you snakes for a head.
Yeah, I don't even know if it's related to the medicine or if
Jon
the curse
Snow, we already discussed this. You're not in the live cast.
You've taken the black. Go away, Jon Snow. But, basically, like, there's this curse linked to some kind of, like, old god power and the church here and whatever. But the sort of premise of the game is that you've arrived on the night of the hunt, where hunters, who are the hero you play as and you encounter others in the city, go around killing the Scourge of the Beast monsters all over the city. And as you're hunting them down, trying to destroy them, you encounter people sort of doing the same thing. They don't really explain it much more than that. Your character has a blood transfusion early in the game, and rather than souls in this game, you collect blood, which is...
somehow heals you.
It doesn't even heal you, it's the currency you use, or the blood echoes.
Oh, the echoes, yeah.
And you cash them in for things, and the hunters have a tradition of bleeding the enemy beasts and killing them. Some of the hunters hunt other hunters. The game does a really good job of you never feeling safe. Like, even the ally characters you encounter that you can kind of talk to always sort of sound like any minute they could snap and kill you, and a lot of them do. Chris, who we work with, had a really good anecdote. I didn't do this in my playthrough, but he had kept a character alive who I had killed just sort of reactionarily when I saw them. And it created sort of a safe zone around one of his lamps. So then when he encountered other NPCs who were living in boarded up houses, they asked him if there was someplace safe where they could go. And he was like, oh yeah, go to this place. And he sent all these people there, like 2 or 3 NPCs. He came back later and everyone's just dead. And it turns out that one of the people he sent there was actually some kind of murderer who killed them all. And that is basically what happens in this game, is every time you think you've inched your way towards some modicum of safety, something comes along to reassure you that, no, that's not true, you're not safe at all. Don't do that.
It's such a dangerous, dangerous game.
Oh, shit.
Well, those guys are
tough. This is actually where I currently nightmare version.
But you can see how fast your health drops. Jesus.
You can see it sort of recovering there, not terribly effectively. Now there's a unique unit running around where I am right now, which is I want to call them the Bell Witches or some such thing. And basically what they're doing is causing everything to respawn, which it normally does not do. Just that, Sparky. Don't need to do that.
He really just wants to shoot you with his weapon.
I don't know where she is. There she is. kill her, then she can't make all this crap get back up that she has been resurrecting.
That's probably even more terrifying if you didn't know.
Oh yeah, yeah, no.
Clear a room.
I had no idea for the longest time in this area that that's what was happening because, you know, nothing prior to this in the game had respawned. And then everything just started getting up. And I was like, no, 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 you were dead. The rules say you can't come back. And the rules didn't say that anymore. That's a big waste. Let me see if I can find this though. We're going to get down here to some other hunters.
That's really funny.
As you can see, the game's very gory by design.
Just a bit. It also doesn't detract from the awesomeness of the scenery.
No, it's really weird how the game remains beautiful even when it's horrifying. It has this just unnerving sense of scale at times. Spoiler alert, if you really don't want to see what's going on with the game, look away. 1, 2, 3, okay. So, if you can see these guys up there, there's this giant Cthulhian monster guy hanging on here. This is where the Lovecraft side of it comes in. So there's some kind of like alien monster creatures, these things that they worship in the church, and they're all over the place. There's a bunch more of these in this zone that are just like hanging out on the buildings.
So wait, they worship that thing?
Yeah, the people who live here do. Yeah, so that's why they're all fucked up. But they're all over the place, and they don't really try to attack you. Like occasionally they do if you're very close to them, but most of the time they just sit there silently doing that. That thing's horrifying. That is a creature of nightmare, and it's fucking 90 stories tall, just sitting there completely silent, doing its thing, man.
What the hell is it doing?
I mean,
it's just communing with the sky.
Being a tentacle What would you do if your face was a squid? I imagine it's just upset that it looks like that.
Probably. It's a bit sad.
Okay, so we got these guys here. Now this is classic Dark Souls. We can see a man.
There's nothing else in that fog. Nothing.
I'm sure it's safe. But what we're going to do, we're going to try and sneak up behind him. Because I happen to know there are a couple hunters in this room. If I can sneak up behind him, I can make this fight a little easier.
So as you can see, you're walking very, very slow.
Very slowly. Bing! Get that visceral attack.
So he's a hunter?
He is a hunter.
That's why he's not dying.
You can see. Oh, and he has a friend. He has two friends.
One with the awesome cane whip. I really like all the trick weapons.
Gun spear. It's a little less dangerous.
So as you can see how brutal this is.
Yeah, I'm gonna let David talk for a second.
This is punishing. So of course these guys are a lot harder to kill because they are essentially you.
Yes.
And they're kicking your ass. That's what's happening.
No.
So that ended well. What happens when you die?
Well, like in Dark Souls, you take a little dirt nap for a little while. In this case, like about 45 seconds while it raises me. And then when I come back, I have none of the blocked icons that I'd picked up. I think I had like 13k on me or something right there. I have to make it back to where my corpse was and pick them up. And if I can't do that in one life, they're gone forever. Small caveat on this. Another change they made in this game is that my pool of blood that I leave behind, like your pool of souls in Dark Souls, can now be consumed by an enemy monster. And then you have to kill it if you want them back.
It also makes them more powerful, I assume.
Yeah, there's some debate about that online. The initial belief was that it definitely buffed them. The belief now is that maybe it buffs them. It's the equivalent of the crystal lizards.
The what?
Dark Souls vets out there will understand that piece of vocabulary. The crystal lizards were the things that you killed in Dark Souls to get those treasure rewards. These little like corpse monster things are sort of the equivalent of it here.
Got it. So you get some special rewards for killing them.
Yeah.
Take out the guy on top first.
Yes.
So this is a bit of a Dark Souls element. I mean, you die, but you know where the enemies are now.
Yep. So like, you learn by that.
Yeah. So get your ass kicked again. Glowing red diamonds. So I mean, if you die right now, all your blood is
everything I earned before. Starting over. Well, I'll make a new pool with the new echoes I picked up. bitch is not going to resurrect me. It's going to alert them to my presence, which is fine by me.
Doesn't really look like they care.
Whoa.
Oh, that guy might.
Come here, buddy.
So you just threw a pebble?
I did. I threw a little rock at this guy to get his attention, make him come up here. It's like, hey, friend, it's an interesting fork you have.
You probably fused the big guy with it.
I mean, or breaks his golem shit. I don't know what he's doing.
Maybe. What the hell is he carrying? Or is that his hand?
No, he's got some kind of like statue in his hands. This big bag of dicks.
This game is terrifying.
It can be.
It is a good horror game. And I think it sets out, or it does what it sets out to do. I mean, it wants you to be challenged constantly.
Yeah. Well,
but at the same time, I feel like this rewards you more than Dark Souls.
Yeah, I think even like Dark Souls, once you're on that mindset, the game is incredibly rewarding. It's so hard that when you do finally find achievement, it's unbelievably satisfying. One thing that Jim Sterling had actually pointed out in his review of it, and if you guys are watching this on YouTube, you should go check it out. It's actually a really killer review. He said that this is the proper heir to survival horror. That we hadn't gotten a real survival horror game in a bunch of years that really pushed the limits of it because they kind of got bred out into just action games. And I think he's right. This game is straight up terrifying. It has a lot of real psychological scares in it, not just jump scares. And I mean, it does have
It's got a lot of jump scares.
It does have
too.
like a heart attack a minute of jump scares at times, but what it has in it is just this like unnerving sense that like you are never safe. And nothing you do is ever going to make it safe to be anywhere in this world. And none of these people are ever going to help you. And that just builds as time goes on in a really, really horrifying way.
I don't think this room is for you, man.
Honestly.
Bottleneck them all. So, I mean, really...
That's not good. Hit a wall. That's very bad.
This game is really challenging.
Oh,
no. But you died on the top of the altar.
I did, so I could go back and recover this now. And a 300 fight is pretty rough in this game.
Yeah. Bloodborne. It's crazy.
I'm actually going to make them watch me go get those again. But I'll go back and show the crafting system quick before we get out of it. But yeah, this game's amazing. I think in terms of the exclusives we've seen, Sony's been just dominating in console sales with really none.
Yeah.
And no must-have exclusives on PlayStation 4 up until this point. A couple of like really great indies. There were some games that like are only available on PSN, but there was no killer app. This is definitely that first game for me. Like, this is one of the highest quality games I own in terms of its design and production, and it is one of the most fun video games like I've ever played. It totally annihilated the rest of the From Software games that were out. It's just ludicrously good and unbelievably unique.
Even though it's a Dark Souls game.
Even though it's a Dark Souls game, and it is just stunningly hard.
Now, are you just going to run past everybody?
I am.
Sniper.
Whoa, hey, friends. Somebody followed me.
It's only that guy with a fork. I'm sure he doesn't even know anything. What are those statues? Like little dog things?
Oh, I don't know what these guys are. They were here. So I was actually here in a different version of this. Oops, I mean to throw that. I was here in a different version of this place before kind of the nightmare hour started with all these other mobs, and these guys were here. There's also this big statue to one of those dudes outside.
Hey, I recognize his creepy face.
Yeah, this is in the hidden village of Yharnam, where I guess they worship these kinds of shitty monster gods. I don't know what the hell's going on down here.
I don't have any idea.
We're gonna use a little hack item though. If I have any of them on me, which of course I don't.
Trying to Hearthstone?
Yeah, there are these items that let you skip back through, but I guess we'll just have to use the two items God gave me, lefty and righty. Oh! Hi-oh!
Or you can just do that. I don't know how you escaped without getting damage at all.
Ain't a thing.
Ain't no thing.
Ain't no thing.
The other thing, when you get back to the homeworld, show them how big it is.
Oh, yeah.
Because when you showed me the first time, I was like floored.
Yeah, I mean, I think Dark Souls 2 was probably a little larger. That's one in the series I haven't beaten. I'm actually planning on going back to it. It's getting a re-release on PS4, I think actually next week or the week after. But this is definitely bigger than Dark Souls. And I can kind of illustrate that here. This is the list of zones for the first area. Second.
Have you explored everything in those?
Yeah. And then there's also another one up here. And that's all just to get through the main campaign, which I think is like 16 to 18 bosses core campaign, and then there's like another 6 or 7 that are optional. And then it also has these procedurally generated dungeons that you can access over here, that are the Chalice dungeons, which is something pretty unique to this. They're kind of these like loot grabby procedural dungeons that you can go into to get all sorts of stuff, and you can actually share them with friends. So if you beat one, you can challenge somebody to beat it as well. It's a neat mechanic. I haven't delved too much into it. I want to play around with it more, but I'm too enamored with the main plot.
Beat the game first.
Yeah. But yeah, it's got a crafting system like in Dark Souls, but unlike in Dark Souls, it's not stupid. This one is much more accessible, so you can see like right away the benefit of, you know, expending the souls in the item. You can see the damage benefit, and there's many less stats to worry about, which is something that kind of appealed to me because
yeah, if you play Dark Souls, you look at the thing and it's confusing as hell.
Yeah, it didn't make any sense for the longest time. I had to read a lot of tutorials to get any good with it. In this, you know, they still have blunt damage and thrust damage, and then they have this blood attack, arcane attack, fire, and bolt. And then it goes into the physical attack stat. But basically, you can really quickly figure out blunt attacks versus thrusts. Those are basically swinging attacks versus the stabs. And then the basic physical damage is for all the rest of the attacks. Blood attack damage is generally only on firearms, and then the arcane stat has to do with how it scales with the arcane attack, and then fire damage and lightning damage if it has those. And then this one much more simply displays, I don't know if you can actually see it, the attribute bonuses. So it's got like the icon for strength, skill, blood, and arcane, and then it gives a letter grade telling you how well that item scales with that stat based off of how upgraded you are. So the thread cane here gives a poor rating for strength, a pretty good rating for skill, a not so good rating for arcane. The Kirk hammer gives a great rating for strength, not so good rating for skill, okay rating for arcane. Ludwig's Holy Blade, good for strength, okay for skill, great for arcane.
So that means as you're upgrading those, they're better upgraded in your strength skill.
Right.
So the higher you're upgrading your strength, it gets better.
Yeah, exactly. And in that degree, the bell curve of how much those are helping goes up the more upgraded it is. So you can see, like, in your stats, where you will locate them determines how well you can basically use those items.
Got it. Still looks confusing as fuck, but...
It is, but compared to Dark Souls, it's much less dense. And just a lot less problematic. Dark Souls had a lot of issues.
So who's that?
This is the doll. She's the character you talk to upgrade your statistics.
Creepy life-size doll.
Very Japanese weirdo character hanging out there. We're gonna eat some blochos and get my stats up here. Assuming I have them. Oh yeah, I got all sorts of them. Gain unspeakable blood echoes.
Unspeakable. 20,000.
20,000. That was a lot. All right. What is it I desire? I desire to level up. And I'm actually going to level up my strength because I have an item I want to use, and I like more attack power. I found an item in my wanderings that I think is a David sort of piece of equipment.
A cannon, yeah. That seems... Is it a shield?
No, that's a gun that you use to interrupt things.
You kidding me?
No.
You like ripped it off a pirate ship.
Yeah, basically.
That's
and,
awesome.
As far as I understand, it works pretty cannon-like. 10 shots at a time.
How did he reload that?
He mostly just shook his arm.
I'm pretty sure that's how you reload a cannon.
Yeah.
That's amazing looking.
Yeah, it just sits on my back while I'm doing this. It doesn't seem to actually slow me down, which was my worry about it. So,
no. I mean, it fires a little slower than your pistol did.
It does, but very significantly slower, but apparently it does quite a bit of damage. So pretty psyched to try that out.
Yeah, that's awesome looking. The customization in your character and everything is really, really cool.
Yeah, the character builder is really cool, and there's a lot of variety because the armor's sort of irrelevant. You kind of find the ones that have the stats you want, and then you can also sort of pick them off the visual quality of them at times because it doesn't really matter that much.
Yeah, I mean they don't change a lot.
No, there are like some elemental protection gears and things like that, but for the most part, you're just equipping the things that you kind of want to wear.
So all in all, very cool looking game.
Yeah, it's a fucking amazing game. But yeah,
it gives you a view of Dark Souls 3, Bloodborne.
Yeah, definitely. If you guys are even on the fence about getting this one and you have a PS4, just jump right off of it. Go and get it. Don't be intimidated by how hard it is. Get into it. It is an amazing experience.
Yeah, even I'm going to pick it up eventually.
We'll give this the David Manning rating of 2 thumbs up.
2 thumbs.
I'm using your thumb.
Are you sure? It looks like you
Put it
only
the
have
fuck
one.
up.
Done.
See?
I already did that. Did you not see the second thumb? Amateurs, man. I don't know what I'm doing.
Table flip.
Come out.